Before we do that, I just recorded an episode with a few of my friends who attended the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego, and we were talking about some of the things that really stood out to us, some of the special moments. What were some moments that really stood out to you, or was there like a particular talk that you really enjoyed?
The whole first day talking about mental health issues was incredible. And I've suffered with mental health issues and had some really dark times as a result of that. And I see so many people within the type 1 diabetes community also suffering from those issues. And in fact, I'm a part of a graduate program right now working on health education and behavior. And I'm writing a paper on diabetes burnout and distress and mental health issues within the type 1 diabetes community. And it is rampant. It is so widespread. And this is just something that isn't addressed, particularly with standard diabetes management. So having that, having all those stories from the first day of the symposium, and having that, those examples, both within the science and within the personal stories, that low carb management or ketogenic a diet, managing your food, managing your inputs can drastically improve mental health. I think that was just so incredible to hear, and it's something that I'm trying to talk about every day, about the benefits of the low carb diet or the ketogenic diet for mental health in people with type 1.
Mega. That day
So,
was just
incredible.
absolutely mega. Yeah. So last year I went to the symposium and I didn't even realize most conferences are 3 days. So I didn't even realize they had a special day on Thursday. So I missed the whole thing.
Mhm.
This year I had an early flight on Thursday. I got delayed, so I had to miss the first few chats. Unfortunately, that included Dr. Georgia Eid. I had to go back and watch it later. But I was stunned because most of these conferences, again, they're Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This one is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which means people have an extra day of travel. They either need to get in early or the night before. I show up at the conference. Again, I'm a few hours late, just in time for Nicole Laurent, who is absolutely incredible. The place was packed. It looked
It
like a
was.
Saturday. The
Yes.
whole thing was full. I was
Yeah.
not expecting that at all. It was wonderful that we were able to have those discussions. You heard about the one also. I'm not sure if you were there in Florida when they did, I believe it was low carb Boca. The whole
Mhm.
first day was about type 1 diabetes. Were you at that one?
Yeah, by Allison Hershey, who is in my company. She's my right hand. She was one of the presenters there.
Ah.
So
Everybody
yes,
talks about that. Everybody
it
said that
was
day
amazing.
was epic.
Yeah, because unless you are personally impacted by type 1 diabetes, or for example, the recent day one personally impacted by mental health issues, or you have somebody in your immediate circle who is, you don't know about these things. You don't know how debilitating and how important it is to be talking about these topics. So I'm just so grateful to Doug and Pam for bringing these topics to the forefront
Yeah.
and creating a stage for them.
Yeah. It's
So,
such a wonderful job that they do. They put on a great conference. Every conference needs a Doug to hustle up the questions. Some people don't monologue at the microphone. I've been in the personal training space. I worked at a bike shop. I've been to lots of conventions and conferences and things like that. And one thing that's so unique when you get a group of people who are low carb, ketogenic,
mhm.
everybody is so energetic. They're so happy. You're just
Yeah,
in this room with all of your friends that you haven't like met yet. Like as soon as I met you, I'm like, we're friends. Like, you know what I
and-
mean? Like it's
yeah,
so unique.
the energy. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but
You're
yes, I
good.
agree 100%. The energy is amazing, and I was really struck by that as well. To say, everybody is so incredible, so supportive, so energetic. Everybody wants to know how everybody else got to this place, because we are still kind of a small group. We're definitely on the forefront of realizing how many things can be affected by what we put into our bodies.
Yeah. I get so hopeful when I'm in that conference room and all the people are like bought in and energetic. You look around at 2 p.m. on a Saturday when we've been going from 8 to 6 and blasting through a lot of rest periods, and everybody's just paying attention and totally like dialed in. And then you leave the conference center and you realize like, oh, we are a very, very small subset. We need to keep
Yeah.
getting this message out, which you've been doing such an amazing job with your company. Let's hear about your personal story about what it was like to be diagnosed a little bit later in life than I hear most people with type 1
Mhm.
diabetes are diagnosed. Tell us about your story about how that went and what it was like to try to to manage this diagnosis.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was diagnosed in my early 20s, and I, had graduated from college, was setting up a life on my own, and then this diagnosis kind of was thrown at me. I wasn't completely blindsided by it though, because I grew up in a family with type 1 all around me. So my mom and my brother are both type 1s, and my mom was diagnosed when I was 5, and my brother when I was 10. So I really grew up with type 1 diabetes around me, although, you don't really understand what it's like to live with a condition until you have it yourself. So in my early 20s, that was, I have to say that if a person were diagnosed, that was actually a pretty good time because I was going through so many transitions already. And maybe it just fit with my personality style. I don't know. But I was trying to create this new life for myself as an adult. And it was just like, okay, well, this is one more thing that I have to kind of transition to. So it seemed to kind of fit with some of those other life transitions that were happening at the time. But I soon realized that it was a lot harder than I ever anticipated. I didn't get any diabetes education in the beginning. The doctor said, go talk to your mom, talk to your brother. I didn't live at home anymore. I wasn't near them physically. This was in the early 2000s. And, I wasn't just going to hop on a video chat like I could now and say, hey, mom, tell me everything you know. So that was, I think, a real disservice. And I was kind of just thrown out to figure it out on my own. And over the course of 10 years, I was starting to have health issues. During that time, I had my first child, which I was able to get my blood sugar levels pretty tightly controlled. I can't say really tightly controlled, but not according to my level of control now. But I was able to get my blood sugar levels controlled, healthy pregnancy, everything went well. But I had been dealing with depression, with medication for depression for, that whole time I was diagnosed. And I really now attribute that to blood sugar dysregulation and the effect that that has on pretty much, every cell of your body, including your brain. So, so that was, looking back on it, that was a really interesting, but a very tough time for me. Through that time, we moved abroad. First, we moved to Uruguay, then to Argentina. And, by all external views, I was doing well. Here I had one baby. I was living the life that I wanted. I was kind of creating this lifestyle that fit me and my husband. And, we were living our best lives, right? But it was also this one specific time I was living in the mountains of Patagonia, and I was living in paradise. It looked like Tahoe. It was just gorgeous. I was there for kind of an extended holiday. We spent 4 months there, and I was suicidal. I was suicidal, and it's I directly attribute that at this point to blood sugar variation because, I was thinking, oh, well, I'll just follow what my doctors say. I'll eat whatever I want. I will give myself insulin for it. And that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm following directions, right? They never talked about watching what you ate, controlling your carbohydrate level. That makes diabetes management easier. No, I didn't know that. So I was, making scones every day and eating this, glorious jam and preserves that were available there. And I was, going out for these hikes and it was wonderful, but then that would make my blood sugar level crash. So my blood sugar level was 400 and then it was down to 40. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and, barely dragging myself to the kitchen because I was having a low blood sugar level and like eating absolutely everything I could. And then my blood sugar spikes again. And it was a horrible existence. So I really struggled with that and kind of the contradiction between outward appearances and what was really happening inside. And it was somewhat shortly after that that I hit rock bottom and said, okay, there has to be a better way. There has to be something else out there that I can do. I'm following what my doctors say, but this obviously isn't working. And whenever I brought that up to my doctors, they would say, oh, just give yourself a little bit more insulin, or, you have to pay more attention, or you're not doing things right, or something like that. And they never really gave me actionable tools to be able to gain control of blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, most people have to figure that out for themselves. And that is horrible. That is horrible. People are suffering as a result of this, and doctors are absolutely no help in most cases. There are more and more good ones out there that have access to this information now. But it was a matter of clawing myself back to health. And by this time, I was living in Cordoba, Argentina, and I had seen a continuous glucose monitor graph, a CGM graph online, which shows your blood sugar levels over a certain period of time. And if you go into a standard diabetes group, you will see blood sugar level graphs that go up and down and up and down and up and down all day long. And this graph that I saw in a group was little tiny movements, just beautiful, like all within range. It was like so straight. I had never even known that anything like that was possible. So I started asking questions. I'm like, how did you do this? I want this. What's your secret? Please share, because I didn't even know this was a thing. And this person referred me to Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution book. And this book was mentioned a few times in the symposium. It is actually, I have it here. It's actually our guidebook. It's our manual, our kind of Bible, if you want to call it that, for diabetes management. And although it's getting a little older and dated, it has really what we need to do to get blood sugar levels under control. Now, it's one of those things, though, that like all health improvements, I suppose, it's simple, but it's not always easy. So that's where we come in. I found this independently of all of my employees. We all met online in these diabetes management groups, and we all found this information independently and said, okay, we have to help people. We don't want people to go through the suffering that we personally had to. And now I'm only 25 or 23 years into my diabetes diagnosis. Allison is more than 40 years type 1. She was diagnosed as a toddler. Lucy is over 30 years type 1. And we've all seen what standard diabetes management can do. And just like barefoot shoes, once you see the improvements that can happen, both mentally and physically through all aspects of our lives, you don't ever want to go back. And you just want to help people discover this information. So it really is a labor of love, and something that we came to through our own struggle and suffering.